Hey Skate World, Eskate again here, and I think I got a really great video for you today. You know, as we go through and we buy these e-skates, sometimes, we really focus on the ESC, or we focus on the motors, or we focus on the style of the deck or something like that. And I think sometimes we forget to focus a little bit on the wheels and what wheels come with it, what wheel options come with it, and actually align that with the style of riding. Maybe we're a carver, maybe we're for speed, maybe we're for sliding. And sometimes I'm not exactly sure that we spend as much time on the wheels, and the wheels are significantly important. So let's talk a little bit about this. Before me, I have 3 sets of off-road wheels. I refer to them as off-road. I generally don't refer to them as all-terrain. Now, my personal preference is a larger wheel. This is a 200 millimeter wheel. It's a 200 by 50, 200 millimeter by 50. This actually came off the Ace Deck X1, and it is a really nice wheel, okay? It's got a great center rib down the middle. It's got some nice tread pattern to it. I've actually taken this one off into the grass, and it's done very well. Being a larger wheel, it does eat up my battery a little bit, as well as being in that grass, it eats up some of those indentations a little bit better. Now, you know that a larger wheel gives you more top end, but you also sacrifice acceleration. Whereas with a smaller wheel, you're going to have less top end, but you're going to have greater acceleration. It takes more inertia to get this wheel turning than it does this wheel. So we then, have less acceleration over here than we do over here, but we have more speed over here than we do over here. So you have to think a little bit about what style of riding you're going to do the most of the time, as well as what wheel options do you want to actually have for your board. Now, this is a 175 millimeter that came with my Eovin GTS. I really like this. It has a great shed pattern for any water. It does have the center rib. It has a smaller contact patch though, but it is being a rubber wheel, it still has a tremendous amount of grip to it. And then this is a 155 that came with the Hurricane. I really like this wheel because, again, being rubber, it has a really nice tread pattern to it that is very grippy. This is a great wheel for dirt. I really like this in the dirt because since it's got that, it really digs in and it grabs. It is a smaller wheel, so it will not take as much inertia as this one. So this one doesn't eat up the battery nearly as bad, plus it's a lighter wheel than this one does, okay? So those are things that you want to consider when you're looking at the larger off-road wheels. All of these give a really nice ride on concrete. This one eats up the imperfections a whole lot better. Plus, just being a larger wheel, it does give a very cushy, very nice ride. I really do like this. So my personal preference is a larger wheel, okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about contact patch because that's something that's really important. This is the Zubom 111. This has a flat surface to it. This is extremely grippy. The entire area is a contact patch. There is no edges to it. There's a straight edge, which we're going to get into that here in just a little bit. This actually is a really nice wheel for carving. This is a really nice wheel just all around, but there is a little bit of an issue with this wheel that I'm going to get into in just a little bit. So the contact patch is really nice. Now let's take the contact patch of the Mad Eskate 105. You're going to notice that the center part of this, there is a little bit smaller contact patch than what there are on the 111s. This is still a really good wheel. We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit, but you do have a larger contact patch right here. I really do like these wheels for carving, but again, we're going to get into something that I don't like about them. So contact patches is extremely important. Take, for example, the Cloud wheel. The Cloud wheel is actually curved a little bit more, so my contact patch is actually significantly smaller in the center. I still like these wheels, but I'm probably not as much of aggressive on this wheel as I am over here on these two wheels. But this wheel does do a really nice job. So contact patch is really important on any of your wheels, depending upon what style of riding that you're going to do. Now let's talk about edges, and let's go back to our Zoo Bomb here. Okay, this is my board side, this is my street side. You're going to notice that it is straight, and that is what one of the options is, a straight edge wheel. This wheel, completely straight, maximizes your contact patch on here. It's very grippy. This is a very grippy wheel. Very great if you're going to be doing tight corners or you're going to be doing a lot of carving. Now, the straight edge I really like, but here's the detriment. And this is not the design of the wheel, because this wheel just happens to be straight edge. Remember, board side, street side. If I am riding, sometimes the street side edge has a tendency to grab imperfections in the road, and it may jerk you that way or it may push you. So you have to be cognizant of that a straight edge is it's not as forgiving, okay? And it will grab whatever is out on that outer edge, and it may pull you that way. I have noticed that a lot on this wheel, and a couple of times it's caught me off guard, and in a couple of cases it's actually taken me off the board. But again, that is not a bad design of Zoo Bomb. That is just the design of a straight edge. Again, Eskate Unity talks about bobbing, moving, and that kind of stuff. If I'd have been doing that at the time that I was riding these wheels, I probably would not have had the problem. Now, let's talk about the Mad Eskate 105s. The Mad Skate 105s actually has what's called a radius edge. A radius edge is actually curved on both sides. So again, here's my board side, here's my road side. It is actually curved on both sides. This wheel I really like, and we're going to do an actual video specifically on this wheel. Actually, on both of these wheels. But this having a radius, it's much more forgiving. It doesn't grab that outside or that inside, and it doesn't jerk you either way. It'll actually roll up, being that it's a radius curved, it will actually roll up on the imperfection. And it's a very good design. Again, more forgiving. I really like the radius edge. Now, I don't have an example of the third option, which is a beveled. So if we were to take these two wheels, in a beveled, it actually comes up, it straight angles, and then it goes into your contact patch, it angles back down, and then it goes straight down. So you actually have something that looks like this. And it's in between the straight edge and the radius. Now, the nice thing about that is that with that wheel, it will just keep wearing down until it gets to the widest point of the wheel, at which time you're probably going to replace it. It is very similar to the radius. It's going to be forgiving out on that outer edge because it's not going to grab. But again, I kind of prefer the radius because it rolls up and cushions into it. But again, you're going to have to decide straight edge, radius, or beveled. Okay, and that's going to be a personal preference of yours. Okay, so edges are really, really important when we are actually selecting wheels. Now let's talk about cores. This is an area that I don't think a lot of people take a look at. They just look at the wheel and they say, wow, okay, it's got the 8mm bearings in it. It's got straight edges on it. It's got a good durometer, but they don't actually look at the cores. Let's talk about cores. The first core that we're going to talk about is a center core. Center core, the core is actually dead center. Okay, now that's kind of nice for a couple of reasons. Is number one, you can flip it. So if you get some wearing on this wheel, that, you know, some imperfection wearing, you can actually flip it and you can actually run it on the other side. So board side, street side, I can actually flip it. Now my logo is going to be on the inside, but I can actually flip it and wear it a little bit. That is really nice for that wheel. Now this is not always the best for sliding because where that is in the center, there's equal pressure being pushed and it may not it may grip that outside. So a center core is not always the best for sliding if you're going to do that. That is something to consider. Now let's talk a little bit about the backside. Okay, now the backside is, and I don't have an exact example, but the backside is where the core is actually lined up to the board side or the outer board side edge. So the vast majority of your pressure is being put on the inside of that wheel, which then in some cases may lift that outer edge. Okay. Now the backside is really nice for sliding. Okay, if you're going to be a slider, you probably want to get those backside ones. The problem that you're going to have an issue with is that with the backside, you're going to get what's called coning. So it's going to start wearing on the inside. And this is not flippable because remember, the bearing is over here. You can't flip that over because the bearing is going to be significantly inset. So you're just going to have to wear out a set of backside cones if you're a slider. Okay, they are a little bit better for freewheeling because the fact that the majority of your pressure is in here and it's going to lift that outer edge, so you're going to have less friction out here. So they are nice for freewheeling, but you will get that coning going on. Now, the other one that is here, and this is an example of one, and the Mad Eskate is what's called the offset. In the offset core, the core is between the backside and between the center. So it's actually kind of in between those two areas. Now this is an example of an offset. Okay. Now these are they're the maximum for grip. So if you are a person that's going to be doing a lot of cornering, a lot of carving, you really want to pick up a set of offsets so that you get the maximum pressure and for that cornering, and it's going to give you just a little bit of extra wear in the board side, but not as bad as you will with the center or with the backside. So the offset is in between the backside and in between the center. It is great for maximum grip. Okay, and the vast majority of your wheels are probably going to be offsets. Okay, so something to consider. Look at that when you actually buy your wheels. Now let's talk about puking for a second. Okay, puking is when we might experience some melting in the center. Now the vast majority, for example, the Cloud wheels uses an ABEC style pulley. So you actually have spindles in here because on the ABEC, you actually have wider areas that slip in. Whereas the Kegel actually has the bolts that go through, the spindles that go through. In any case, these are made of plastic. Okay, in all of these cases, the center cores are made of plastic, and that is for a reason, because as that bearing is going, if you're a hard rider and a long rider, that bearing is actually going to heat up. You want to dissipate that heat. So what happens is if it doesn't dissipate it, it begins to melt that plastic, and that's called puking. And you do not want that to happen because A, it's going to deform the center of your core, and B, if it's bad enough, if that bearing is bad and it really heats up, it can actually take you out. So you want to be very careful about the cores of these wheels, and you want to make sure that it is dissipating that heat. So that is something else that you want to talk to them or ask the people about who are selling them. You know, what's the heat dissipation in here so that you can avoid what's called puking. Okay? Didn't think you were going to be talking about puking today, did you? Okay, let's talk about durometer. Durometer is extremely important on these wheels because of the fact that your durometer on most skateboards, longboards, let's say, is going to be anywhere between 78A and 85A. That's generally the range. Now, the ones that I have before me are all less than that. They are a softer wheel. Okay, so for example, the Zoo Bombs are actually a 74 durometer. They are a little more cushy. They give a little more cushy ride, a little bit more grip since they are able to rebound. The Mad Eskate 105s, these are actually a 72 durometer, and I can actually squeeze them quite a bit. I really like these wheels. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but these are a very grippy wheel. Now, these that came with my own board Zeus, these are a 76, so they're going to actually be harder over here, and they actually are a very hard wheel. I feel much more of the imperfections in the road on this 76A than I do on this 72A, as well as even on the 74. Because being a harder one, it's going to send that road traffic through to your feet. You're going to feel it a whole lot more in these wheels. Now, obviously, again, going back to the style of riding that you're going to do, you want to make sure and pick a durometer or a hardness. If you want to be a slider, you're probably going to want to be up around that 80 to 85 maybe. Get a harder wheel, and then taking a look at your core, where is that core lined up in order to be able to effectively slide. If you're going to be a carver or a cornering rider, you're going to want to have a smaller durometer, probably anywhere around that 72 to maybe 76, so that you can get some really good grippiness coming out of those. Out of that. Now, be careful when you're talking about durometer. You also need to be looking at what's called rebound. Okay, so for example, let's use the Zoo Bomb 111s here. The Zoo Bomb 111s actually have a 90% rebound. And what that is as you are on the wheel is going to flatten out. And as it's rolling, it's going to flatten down at the bottom. Rebound is that when it comes out of that roll, it actually pushes the wheel and keeps the momentum going. So this has a 90% rebound on it. So that's a really good rebound to keep or help keep that board rolling and those wheels rolling. Okay. When you're buying, always ask what the rebound is on these wheels, because that is important to help maximize the battery in there. Now, this 76A has very little rebound to it. It is a harder wheel, okay? But you also want to make sure that you don't go too soft, because if you go too soft, then your rebound is nothing and it actually has more drag. So that is something that you want to take a look at when you're buying these wheels. What is the rebound? Because it can have an adverse effect on your battery life of your ride. So durometer and rebound is important, and when you're looking at that. See, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that you may not have thought about when you thought, well, I'm going to buy a set of wheels. Okay, whole series of questions that you need to ask. Now, let's talk just a second about 3 wheels. Okay, I am going to do individual reviews of these 3 wheels. Obviously, you know that I'm an iCloud fan. I love iClouds. Smaller contact patch. These are the 120s. These actually have the core in the center. It gives a really nice ride to it. Being a 120, it eats up the any imperfections in the road. I really do like these. A lot of people say there's not much grip to them. I have not had any problem with grip. I'm probably not as much hard carving and hard cornering on these, purely and simply because the contact patch. And I have had a couple situations where the iCloud wheels, when I came out of some water that ran across, someone watering their lawn, where I got on the throttle, they actually did spin out. And it caught me a little bit off guard, but didn't take me off the board. The pattern of this is really nice. Some of these wheels that I have several sets of Cloud wheels. They have over 500 miles on them, and they are still really good in the center contact patch as far as that tread pattern. So I still like the Cloud wheels, okay? I still like these. Now let's talk a little bit about the Zoo Bombs. I really like the Zoo Bombs. These are a great wheel for carving. They are a very wide wheel, nice contact patch. The only problem that I have is that outer edge sometimes catches an imperfection out here and may jerk me that way. This is a really nice wheel. I am going to do a review of that wheel. This is my latest bandwagon, shall we say? I'm not going to say bandwagon because that's really kind of bad, I guess. I was approached a while back by the vendor for the Mad Eskate 105s, and I kind of ignored it. But then I watched a couple other videos. One of them was on Eskate Unity's site, and I really watched it, and I started researching. So I contacted him and I ordered a set for me to test on my Zeus OG. And I will tell you that after about 15 miles, I fell in love with these wheels. Great ride. These are 105s, where the vast majority of the time I'm on at least 120s. Okay. These are 105s. Okay. Great contact patch. I will tell you that I was cornering and I was carving like I had almost hadn't done before, or at least for a long time. These are extremely grippy. Also, the other thing is that rolling on these have a really nice roll to them. I literally felt in some cases that I was just riding on butter. They do have the cutouts, the drill outs here, so they do actually compress. So I don't get, even though they're 105s, okay, and they're a 72 durometer, because these cutouts are in here, I don't feel as much of the imperfection traveling through the trucks and the deck into my feet. So these are a really nice wheel. If I had to put these in order of what I like, at this point in time, they would fall in this order. I really have to admit, and I'm going to do a separate video, I love the Mad Eskate 105s. I ordered 2 more sets, so now I have 3 sets of them. I do really like the iCloud wheels. Matter of fact, iCloud wheels are on a couple of the boards, and I have probably 4 sets of iCloud wheels. I have 3 sets of the Mad Eskates, and I really do like the Zoo Bombs for carving. The only thing that I don't like is it catching that outside edge because it has the straight edge. It's not a bad wheel, it's just the way the straight edge. So I would put these in that order. Look for those videos to come out real soon because I'm going to dig into each of these wheels separately and talk about them. So I hope in today's video you saw something that was of benefit to you, something to consider as you are looking at wheels. You know, take a look at larger versus smaller. Take a look at that contact patch. Consider the edges, you know, whether you want a radius edge or whether you want a straight edge. Take a look at where those center cores are. Are the center cores backside, offset, or center? Take a look at the durometer and don't forget about that rebound. Eskate hooligan, ride hard, carve safe, wear that protection. Have a great day.